Actually don't know if we're live. I'm
I think
hoping
I think we are.
Jamie, my producer. Okay, it says live. There we go. Welcome, everyone. We are officially live. We're 10 seconds in here. Hopefully, you didn't see us fumbling around too much. But my name is Matt Long. I'm one of the co-founders here at BulletProofRealEstateAgent.com. And what we do is we help realtors get found and chosen on Google, Alexa, Siri, Bing, Yahoo, and many, many others. And we help them do this organically without ads. That's what we do. Today, we're joined with Matt. Is it Deseno or Deseno or
It's Deseno. It's like casino with
Deseno?
a D. Yeah.
Okay, right. Awesome. So we're joined with Matt Deseno, who is a prolific Hawaiian shirt wearer, apparently, and all about energy coming from the shirt. He is the owner of Baam. He's going to tell us what that is, which services hundreds of companies out there. So, Matt, why don't you give us a little bit on your background and also tell us about Baam and what that is?
Yeah, for sure. And so my company, we do a thing called Fun Shirt Fridays. And so I don't usually walk around looking like I am retired in Florida, but turns out we're talking on a Friday. And so you get to see Fun Shirt Friday Mats.
Very nice.
Baam is it's been an evolution over time, but so we are in the marketing space and we focus on helping businesses become category kings. Our emphasis has been more in the technology and the software side of it, but I've been doing it we've had it for 10 years. And what we like to say is we are people-focused marketing. We've just found that the fallacy of business to business or business to customer is that really comes down to person. And a lot of the habits and styles that people used to use to market actually trained your customers, your potential customers, to treat you less like a person. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. But so that's a little background on me. And so right now I'm based in California. Interesting and relevant to this is my father's a real estate agent. So I am familiar from that side, but we have gone more in like the marketing tech space.
Sure. Well, I definitely think Baam when I see that shirt. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about Baam and how it would apply towards the real estate space?
Oh
Maybe give
yeah.
your thoughts.
Well, and so this is the interesting thing that I've seen is for us, people focused marketing. How does that apply in every context? There is so many folks right now. There's a lot of concern coming up, right? We're moving into maybe a season of uncertainty. There's recession, there's inflation, all of these words going around. And so for a lot of, if you think of like just the business side of it, businesses, money, like those sort of things, those are vulnerable to inflation. Those are vulnerable to recession. There's a few things that don't get inflated out of, like don't get reduced. One of those is actually like skills and abilities. Your skills and abilities cannot be depreciated. Your skills and abilities aren't going to get affected by inflation. I said the other thing is relationships. Skills and abilities and relationships. Your relationships don't somehow become less valuable because interest rates have risen, right? Your relationships don't somehow depreciate or they get inflated out of value because of whatever's happening in the economy or whatever's happening in the world today. And so the interesting conversation when it applies to real estate is I love the position that real estate agents are in right now, or if you're in the real estate space, in the real estate industry, there are in moments of uncertainty, in moments of kind of like shifting sand, this is where huge opportunity comes because that reshuffling means that there's more opportunity than there typically would be. In moments of change, that's when you catch the most. That's when you catch the most. If you think of like seasons of incredible prosperity, they usually paralleled or came right around the time or after incredible kind of like uncertainty. And we think of like what COVID did to the economy. Like COVID hit and then everything like boomed. Crazy uncertainty. Now, not everyone boomed, right? There were obviously categories, industries that suffered greatly, but it wasn't that somehow people didn't want to grow. It wasn't that somehow the things that keep us true to who we are as humans, that I value relationships. I value my health. I value the well-being of myself, my family, and the people in my community around me. Those things don't change. Those things don't actually depreciate. And so for folks that are in the real estate space now, looking at, what's going forward in this uncertainty, for me, and we kind of feel like this in any business scenario, but I actually think it's maybe even more affirmed in the real estate space, is there is only there's really only kind of comes down to two paths that you can choose. And the one, if I'm a real estate agent right now, is I can say, this is not the game for me. I literally should just quit, right? I've just become affirmed that this is not what I want to do. That's one possible scenario that happens. I'm sure it happens all the time. Like you decide, this is not what I want to do at all. So therefore, don't do it. But if you decide, yes, this is what I want to do, then the really only clear decision in my mind is you need to grab at this opportunity. I said, like, I'm from California. We learned about the gold rush. It wasn't called the gold crawl. When uncertainty and opportunity arises, you basically you have to move quickly.
Sure.
You do not want to be like, I graduated college in 2011. Right. So I was going through college in like that 2008 and that season of uncertainty. And I remember coming out and I just didn't know. I didn't have the hindsight. I had never been through any of these seasons. I was fortunate that like I had skills that couldn't depreciate and I could kind of like forge my own path and make that make sense. But you know what happens in like, years down the road, all you do is look back and say, man, I wish I'd gotten into real estate in 2011. I wish I'd been taking every dime that I was getting and buying houses then, right? If this was from like the real estate investment side, there's probably a lot of, other people that said, no, because of the uncertainty, I'm gonna withdraw. I'm gonna hide around. That's literally that is the dumb decision. You have an okay decision, which is to say, I'm gonna quit, not gonna do it. I'm gonna decide I'm gonna do it, and then you may as well go all in, because the things that right now are gonna set you apart on a people-to-people basis are things like awareness. How many people even know you exist? Things like attractiveness. Like if they see you, do you look so good that they want to give you a call? Because it's not that in the season, it's not that nothing's going to happen, right? In seasons of uncertainty, it's not that like the people disappear. People still exist. Their preferences might change, right? Their vehicle for achieving what they wanted might adapt, but those timeless things never change. And so, for what we help our clients through, and I know this is why there's resonance in kind of exactly what you guys focus on, is how do you show up so people know you exist? How do you look so good that people feel silly not giving you a call? Imagine that. You look so good, they feel silly not calling you. They're like, I have to call you. And then how do you make sure that the process of going from a stranger to a customer is as low friction as possible? I don't know if anybody's had that experience. Like there's still a lot of folks in the local space where it is frustrating to become a customer. We just got done with summer and it was incredibly hot out. And so I wanted to, we were going to get like a little mini split installed, and I had how many HVAC guys that I need to contact? And I remember one guy got back to me like no response. 3 weeks later says, hey, I think I might have that mini split you're looking for. And I'm like, buddy, I've already hired someone. The job is done. Like you are basically defeating yourself by setting yourself up to be slow. Like, no, and same thing in real estate. Like we you say, even in this space, I'll tell you, like I'm not, actively in there, but I'm an investor. I buy properties and I'm in escrow right now with someone would say a horrible interest rate, right? Oh my gosh, this is a horrible interest rate. It's not that there aren't people out there transacting. It's that you need to know how to find the people that are transacting, because it is happening. It's going to keep happening. My motivation isn't for my personal residence, it's for an investment. But like a lot of people might have this limiting belief. This is usually, this is the crushing thing. I say, like, an okay decision is you quit. A good decision is you're in and you're going to go all in. And then a bad decision is you're in, but you're going to be like lethargic about it. Like that's literally the only like really bad idea in my mind. And I think where that happens is from a limiting belief that when things are uncertain, that somehow the timeless people things have ended, right? Yeah. Like because it's uncertain, my best course of action is nothing.
Yes, totally. You bring up some awesome points. And one of the points you bring up in the construction space is I think people are trying to handle too much. The same guy that's installing is the same guy that's pricing, or the same guy that's doing the accounting, right? Usually in the small contractor space, that's everything, which trends, that turns into a 3-week turnaround trying to get you a price on something that you're looking for, which is a terrible business model. One of the things we do here at Bulletproof is we try to do all of this for you. You bring up, not existing. Well, we try to help realtors exist in the Google space and many others, but we have a high focus on Google because that's where most people start. And so we try to take the attitude of, we want a realtor to be a realtor, right? And we're going to do the rest of this for you. So what is it that you have done for Bulletproof specifically that you think makes Bulletproof better?
Oh yeah. I mean, this is the, and so speaking from my father's an agent, right? So these are the kind of things that like, I literally recommend and tell him. So he's a real estate agent. He's been in it since 1994. So he persisted through 2008 and adapted, right? He had to go, he was a real estate agent, but I remember he was doing like home cleanouts, right? These foreclosures, and he was getting contracts with the bank for hundreds of dollars to go out there and change the locks and mow the lawn. And he just adapted and stayed persistent, and then got, contracts with the banks that then still find inventory. Right. And so one of the things that I think is a limiting belief that he's had, that I've had to like coach him through, is that the only thing that works is what has worked. And so I love it. He loves signs. He's all about signs. I mean, I think he single-handedly keeps the sign shop in business because he's just signs. And he said like, well, I get people tell me they see my signs, I get customers that way. Therefore, signs are the only way that I get customers.
Sure.
And I had to coach him and explain, it's like, it's not that they aren't effective, but that is one channel of accessibility, right? It comes down to accessibility, right? It's not that they're bad, but if you zoom out, the reason, if you're there and you're like, well, I put no effort and energy to being found on Google, therefore I've never had anyone find me from Google and become a customer. Therefore, I believe I can't get customers from Google. That is the same logical sequence as me never putting a sign out there and believing that signs can't get me customers, or me never printing out a flyer and believing that flyers can't get me customers, right? It's a limiting belief. It is absolutely fundamentally not true. I will tell you, how did we find the agent who was doing this deal? It was Google, 100% Google. And I literally Googled, city. That's exactly it, just like that. Realtor in. I Googled city realtor, because there are people, and in an increasingly amount, that you zoom out. It's not unique to any industry or profession or something like that. You got to think of it from a people perspective. How do we find stuff now? How do we answer questions now? We go to Google. There's a reason why Google is a category king in so many aspects. But it's because it has become, I mean, unless you're listening to this and you're saying, no, I use Bing. You're like, okay, we all know, okay. Like, who uses, people aren't using Bing because they wanted to. They're using Bing because you bought a Microsoft computer and it was there by default, right? People elect to use Google. I think it's still one of the most downloaded like the Google suite. Google applications are one of the most downloaded applications on iPhones. You think of like iPhones, right? Because Apple's got their own stuff, right? And they try to like, oh, how are we gonna do the search? So much so there was early days where Safari would leverage like we're going to try to do our own search stuff. Then they realized that this is silly. Why compete with the clear category king? So now in this situation, it's like, yeah, align yourself with the category king. It would be like if I said, imagine a real estate agent saying, well, we only transact in Dogecoin, right? And maybe reverse. We only transact in gold bullion. You can pay me, but only in gold bricks. And you're like, okay, you will have less customers because less people use that. And in the same way, if you're not using Google, you're unintentionally hiding your business under a rock for a large portion of your potential customer base.
Yeah, and maybe the largest portion, actually, because we're at a pivot point here where technology is changing, the way people do real estate's changing, and we're potentially hitting the top, or maybe we've already hit the top of the market and we're starting to curve the other way. And one of the things that people who, times are uncertain, but you can study history. And when going back and studying history, you'll see that these downturns are traditionally short and compared to the uptrend to follow. Maybe your downtrend is 6 months, 1 year, and your growth period is 10 to 15 years after that. So we have this small window, like you mentioned, to adjust, to adapt, to evolve to the way that the business is going to continue moving forward. So maybe, touch on that a little bit, trying to get your dad to think a little bit differently.
Oh yeah. And this is literally what I'm talking him through right now, is that like you said, in the downturn, even in those seasons of uncertainty, this is where, like I said, okay decision, just quit. Totally fine. If you're like, this is wrong for me, absolutely quit. But if you're convinced I'm in, go all in, because being like passively in is literally worse than just quitting.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in, this is where the grab happens. So you're mentioning Google. We're still, I tell a lot of folks, this is kind of, if you study history, in the expansion of the United States, there was the Louisiana Purchase days, right? Where like huge half of the US was just like added on. The crazy thing about that period, I remember studying, like they would literally go, this is real estate too. You literally just take stakes and be like 4 stakes. And that was my land. That was it. I didn't have to buy my land from anybody. I was like, claimed it. This was mine. I mean, there's a crazy part of it. It was maybe there were people there and there was probably like bad process, but that was the space. It was like, this was open territory to grab. All you have to do is go and grab it. Once you grab it, the next person comes in, it is much harder, right? That's what you think about that. Like think the price of land then versus the price of land now. Crazy. We're in that digitally right now. There is still a Louisiana Purchase phase going. And this is why I love companies like BulletProof, because you guys are helping folks who are like, maybe they felt scared or they're like distant or they're like, I feel so uncertain or unknowledgeable about the space. And you're able to accelerate crazy results in a short period of time, because it's still like, you can still go out there and get beachfront property by just putting the stakes in the ground. And that feels phenomenal and awesome. And in the equivalent of digitally, like seeing for real estate agents, for people like my dad, where I'm like, he's getting, $1 million listings from basic stuff. Well, I say for people in the digital space, this feels like basic stuff, right? It feels like, wow, this wasn't like, I just put 4 stakes in the ground. And so as I say, the only guaranteed way to lose, the only bad decision to be like, I'm just going to kind of be here, but I don't know if I'm going to I don't know if I'm going to venture into that like crazy land called California. You're like, no. There's miles and miles of coastline. Like go there and grab your free beachfront property. That's kind of effectively what's happening here. And so now is the time to make the move. The people that are like going deep right now are going to have enormous disproportionate wins 1 year, 2 year, 3 years out, because they'll say, hey, when everyone was terrified, and there were some people who were like fair by them, they quit, but there was a sad number of folks that sat paralyzed. They sat paralyzed and they thought that somehow standing still was safe, but the ground was shifting. The ground was shifting. And so that was actually the worst decision you can make, is do nothing in this time. The best decision is to run full force, because there's so much opportunity to be made. And so these are timeless things. This is marketing strategy that I tell you 50 years ago, right? You will never have more customers than the number of people that know you exist. You'll never. That was true 50 years ago. That'll be true 150 years from now. You will never have more customers than the number of people who know you exist.
Yeah. That's excellent.
And this is the cool thing too, which I love what BulletProof does, is you guys take a people first approach as well. Think about like most real estate agents, you say, what's the main form of business? Even going by, it's a lot of times it's referrals. More and more, I think that's shifting, because you got people like me who literally just Google that all the time. We're like, and so what I found is it's not that referrals are no longer in place. It's that referrals have taken a different shape. And we talk about it. I consider it an evergreen referral. There are ways that I trust strangers' endorsements of other real estate agents. I don't actually talk to those people, but I feel like I got a referral from them. And these are the kind of things that BulletProof does. And if you are sleeping on that, oh my goodness, this is why. Like that's going to be the land grab, is the people who are strategically gathering. What I mean by evergreen is like, it would be good if one person told you, like, if someone says, hey, this real estate agent's great, right? But what if I could get that same process of them saying like, hey, this real estate agent is great, and they're basically saying it 24/7, 365 days a year. They're saying this real estate agent is great. That's better than them going and talking to 10 people, because now that same endorsement, that same recommendation, that same referral works so much harder. It could land me 1,000 new customers, right? Whereas maybe previously it would get me like 10. If that's the power of digital. It's the same thing that we've always known. Oh, referrals are a great way to get business. It makes people want to do business with you before they even talk to you because someone else said you were good. Okay, that's awesome. Now we got to adapt to how people are. Like, it comes down to people. How do people interact with other people now? It's mostly online. Like, we are living in like this post-COVID world. We had a lockdown season where it was mostly video calls, Zoom calls. And so if there were folks that were uncomfortable with it before, everybody's comfortable with it. My great grandmother will get on Zoom. It's like the barrier to how do I translate what's typical for me as a person into the digital is no longer there. So now it's just a matter of like, are you going to embrace the things that are going to happen anyways, that things you already believe? If you already believe that a referral is the best type of business that you could ever get, then you should be having a system like BulletProof that predictably gets you more referrals. It would actually, there should be dissonance there. Like, you should feel like, I am actually in conflict with myself. I believe this is the best thing I could do for my business, but then also I don't want to predictably do that best thing for my business, right? If you believe that letters are a great way to get business or whatever, flyers, but then imagine you hand wrote out every flyer, someone would say, this is insane. Have you heard of printers? Like, you can do this at scale. If you believe handwritten is good, you can do this on a much larger space. And that's what technology allows you to do. It allows you to kind of like in that way where like printing press went from like, oh, I could hand write it out every single time, or I could get this machine that takes the same powerful words and does it at mass.
Yes.
And
well, Matt, hey, you're very entertaining and I love listening to you. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. Hopefully we can do this again next month. If you guys are interested, go to bulletproofrealestateagent.com, check out the video, click on the free demo, and we know we can help you as these times change and we move into a different era of real estate. Thanks a lot, Matt. Hopefully we can do it again.
Thanks for having me.